Boston College has a new AD, and this one is a little tough to swallow. We'll talk about Blake James, why they hired him, and why I'm a little worried about it. All of this and more on today's Locked On Boston College.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Boston College. AJ Black. Happy Tuesday/Wednesday. I was planning on doing our episode on Wednesday this week. We do this every day, but I'm going to do it on Wednesday. But I'm going to get this out early because Boston College has hired their new AD. Pete Thamel of ESPN is reporting that Blake James, the former Miami and Maine AD, is heading to Boston College to be the new athletic director. Now, this news comes on the heels of absolutely no breaks, as everything was kind of behind lock and key in this AD search. According to Matt Fortuna, there was a series of other finalists that Boston College had looked at, including Mike Buddy of Army, LaSalle AD Brian Baptiste, and Florida Executive Associate Linda Teeler, who were also the finalists. So, Blake James, former Miami AD, they had a mutual parting of ways, which I think is just code that he got fired after 9 years with the program. He's been there since 2013. 8 years with the program. And before that, he was the AD of Maine. He had experience at Miami in another role and at Providence in their athletic department. Now, during his time at Miami, James did not make a lot of friends. All of the programs under him, I don't think many of them did very well, especially the two major ones, football and basketball. Football, you talk to any Miami fan, they want to be the U. Well, the U wasn't there. They were about 19 and 15 in the last, I think it was 3 years with Blake James as the AD. And basketball, up until 2022, when he wasn't even there anymore, had 0 NCAA tournament appearances. So you have seen, a program that doesn't have a lot of success. But so why is Boston College, going after a guy like this? What does he bring? Well, he has experience in fundraising, which is obviously a huge thing with BC. That was a big deal with Pat Kraft. Martin Jarmond was a pretty good fundraiser. It's something that I think Father Leahy goes for. So he built a new football practice facility, new baseball practice facility, a nutrition center, a few other things. He did those kinds of jobs. However, when I look at all this, when I take the grand scheme of what Blake James is, what he brings to Boston College, I have to say I'm underwhelmed. I'm willing to give anybody a chance. I think, I was not the biggest Pat Kraft fan, and I think I was pretty wrong there. I think he did a pretty decent job. I'm not a big fan. I was not a big fan of Earl Grant being hired. Hey, I'm wrong after 1 year on that one. I'm still in that I'm in that space right now with Blake James, where I'm just reading up on this guy and reading up on what he has done, and it has not really made me feel very confident. To see so many Miami fans so excited to see a Boston College program get a AD like him and kind of snickering at it, I mean, it's not a good sign. I'm not a big fan of you want to get a guy that's up and coming like Pat Kraft. He was at Temple. Temple fans were really kind of bummed that he left, that he had done some really good things. You don't get that same impression with James. They're kind of like, why is Boston College hiring him? What are they doing? Because he just was not a good, on his results on field were just mediocre. He didn't have a good football program. His basketball team was not very competitive under him. So I have to be a little bit nervous about this right now. I'm not trashing the guy, but I feel like I wished when Boston College was doing this that they went after a AD that was young and upcoming. Like LaSalle, sure, you may not have been a flashy name, but maybe he had, he was a younger AD or whatever. I know definitely the AD the associate AD at Florida was. You get these younger guys and ladies in, and they can do more. I'm totally fine with getting those young guys in. But this one, it just seems to me like a Father Leahy hire. Like older AD who's been around, he's experienced, hasn't really done a lot great, hasn't been a disaster, but he's just kind of there. And so he hires him. He's also good at fundraising, which Father Leahy loves too. That's always an important thing for Boston College. So I don't know. I know a lot of fans out there are not too excited about this, and I totally get where you're coming from. You wanted to this is such an important hire for Boston College because you need someone innovative. You need someone who is forward thinking that can plan ahead, because right now college football and college athletics in general has changed more in the last couple years than at any time in its history. You have the NIL, the name, image, and likeness stuff. You have the change of the football landscape with the ACC possibly either getting bigger, dissolving. Who knows what's going to happen there? And you need someone at the top that you can trust. And is Blake James going to be that guy? I don't know, but I'm a little concerned because of his past track record that he's not going to be a home run hire, which is what I was hoping for. Does he have the potential? Sure, he could be. He could have something that really pops up. I mean, to be fair, before 2021, Miami sports was kind of near the bottom in everything in college athletics in terms of putting money in. The only reason I think that they fired him when they wanted to fire him was because Miami was like, oh yeah, we can get all this money now and pay our players and do all this great stuff. And let's get this insane coaching staff for our football program with every top recruit, top coach and assistant coach in the country. Throw them all on one staff. Let's get the AD from Clemson. We'll bring him in. So it's credit to them. They were forward thinking there. That being said, James did kind of earn his way out the door too. So I'm not sure that was the best move here. So if I was to rate this hire on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being it's a home run hire, when Hafley got hired, I was at like a 9. I thought that was like really a solid pick. I loved it. And when, Earl Grant was hired, and again, I said I'm wrong about this so far, I had it about a 3. Where do I put this? I'll give it a 4. I think I'm going to rate this a 4. Like a little bit more excited than Grant. It's not a very, I'm not a very optimistic person about this right now. But luckily, you have some things in place here. You have a good coach in football, hopefully. You have a good basketball coach. And you have some other good programs. I mean, Lacrosse, they can't screw that up. They just hired a hockey coach. So they got some things in general that are in place. But I'm going to talk in a moment what Blake James has to do to fix BC sports and what he can do in the next couple of years to maybe shut the doubters like myself up. We'll get to that in just a moment. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs in sports info. Find all of the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next year's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. Head on over to BetOnline, where the game starts. Locked on Boston College here, AJ Black. We're talking about Blake James, the new AD reportedly for Boston College. Now, there's been a few people out there that have voiced their opinion, and I want to read you 2 major ones. Mike DeMoro, who goes by @BC Genius, he's a sports columnist at the New London Day, had his comment that said, I have a friend who is an AD at a D1 school on the East Coast. Just texted, I know Blake. He's a terrible hire. He couldn't even get to an interview at Nevada last month. #EverToExcel. So, yeah, that happened. And then, but let's be fair too. Jim Paquette, who used to work at Boston College, he had a completely different viewpoint of the Blake James hire. And he said, extraordinary hire by Boston College, has the experience and relationships across the NCAA and ACC to position BC Eagles for the future. Will be a tremendous fit in Boston College, in Chestnut Hill, excuse me. So you see, there's different viewpoints here. BC Genius and Jim Paquette. So, Mike DeMoro and Jim Paquette. I should go by his real name, right? Well, what does Blake James have to do, right? What does an AD do behind the scenes that gets a program moving? Well, first of all, I think it's coaching, right? You get the coaches, you get your guys in, and you make the hires for new head coaches. So where is Boston College at right now? Football, you're all set. You got Jeff Hafley here. He's not going anywhere, at least for a couple more years. So you should be good there. Same thing with men's basketball. Right now, you're looking okay. Earl Grant, I think the second year should be a lot of fun to see where he's going to be able to take this program, because we just found out on Monday that DeMar Langford is returning to the program. So, which is not a surprise, but you have your deck, you got a full deck going into the 2022 season. So those two hires are good. You just hired Greg Brown already for hockey with Pat Kraft and the Hockey Advisory Board to hire Greg Brown to replace Jerry York. You should be okay with women's basketball for now. I still don't know what's going on with the Joanna McNamee losing like half of her roster due to the transfer portal, but that's not for here or there. We'll talk about that at some other point. But there is a major hire that I think is really important and can't be undersold that Blake James needs to make, and that's the future of Mike Gambino. Now, Gambino and the baseball program, they just finished an absolutely really, I don't want to be mean, but a really tough season. They went 5-25 in the ACC. Their pitching stats and baseball stats, I said this last week, were in the dead bottom of almost every possible category you can think of. They had an team ERA in conference over 8. I think it was almost close to 9. And it just seemed like they took a huge nosedive from the year before. So you have to wonder, is this going to be James's first move? Is he going to have to make a decision on what to do with Gambino? Because let's be frank here, folks. It's been a couple of years since BC baseball, and I'm saying, those years where they beat Miami in the in the NCAAs, since BC has been relevant, and they seem like they've gone completely in the wrong direction. So you have to wonder, is he going to be the guy that pulls the trigger here and makes his first hire with baseball? Because you could argue, and many of you probably are going, yeah, he sure is, AJ, that baseball needs a change at the top. So that would be the first thing. Now, the second thing is something that people have brought up as well. Now, it's to continue to build this NIL pipeline, programs, whatever they need on Boston College to make sure these kids are getting paid. So every other school, he could just look at his old program. Miami is getting kids paid left hand over foot. There's a lawyer down there that I feel like is getting a lot of kids contracts with different marketing companies and things like that. BC needs something like that up here. We just saw in the last year, the two big ones I can think of are Brevin Galloway and Zay Flowers getting new cars, but you want to get more. Why isn't Phil Dracovic out there getting things? He is going to be a possible first-round draft pick. Market the heck out of this guy, because yeah, he needs to get paid so you can show other players they can get paid, but it's a perfect opportunity for Boston College to get back out there and have their players have their faces on different products so kids can see them, or on TV, internet, all that good stuff. So they need to get some programs built up so that local community businesses, bigger business. BC has tons of wealthy donors. They've got guys that'll do it. Guys that are big BC fans that will, pay to have a kid, get a good deal for Boston College. So he's going to explore that. And of course he's going to have to do that within the context of a Catholic school like BC, because they're going to want to make sure that the NIL deals kind of align with what they're doing for our, the values of BC. But in the end, you need to do it, because otherwise other programs are going to come in and start stealing players like they almost did with Zay Flowers. So that is another massive goal that he's going to have to do. And it's one that it could be tricky, because again, you need BC guys. The local businesses that see Boston College sports are probably not interested unless they have a BC connection. But there should be plenty of programs out there, and with donors that are alumni that will pick up a BC kid to pay him to stay at BC. So I think that's going to be another big factor to watch for Blake James. And then all the other little pieces, whether it's being a voice in the ACC in terms of getting a new media deal, like helping out Jim Phillips, or making sure BC is positioned for whatever changes come down that road. Because you look at what's going on in the NCAA in football, and you see the revenue streams going to the SEC and Big Ten, you have to worry a little bit about the future of the ACC, because it looks like they're going miles below. And if that happens, a school like Clemson, a school like Florida State might say, peace out, I'm going to the SEC, or another school might, figure out a way to get out of that too. If BC notices that and has the opportunity to jump ship, and maybe a Big Ten might be interested in BC to get that big market in Boston, maybe that's a move he has to make. Maybe it's something that he has to look at. But I think he's going to have to be a leader and be really show his vision in terms of how that program can move forward. And then donations, again, get that money. I mean, it's an easy thing to say, but like, you need to continue to build capital projects at Boston College. You can't slow down because now you have a basketball practice facility coming in or a baseball practice facility. You need to start looking at things like renovating Conti Forum, renovating Alumni Stadium, either maybe tearing one down or building a hockey only facility. I mean, these are all things that could happen, right? You have all this new land at Pine Manor that you could build a hockey specific facility just for the hockey team. Or you could, find more land that you could do it across the street in Brighton. I'm not sure. I don't know what availability that they have to do something like that. But it's all stuff that they can think about, right? You don't want to do it now, but there's that lawn now in front of Alumni Stadium where there's some tailgating. But if you need to take it away to build something, you do that, right? So there's some bigger things that he's going to have to look at and work with Father Leahy and the administration on how to push these programs forward so they don't slide. Because, I think BC sports is at a crossroads right now where there's some programs that are doing well. Obviously, Lacrosse, we'll talk about them in our final segment, is one of the premier programs in the country. You've got women's basketball doing pretty well. You've got basketball doing better. But then you have some of the other programs that are not, like men's tennis had a real bad year. And you have some other teams that are doing the same thing. So what do you do? Where does this program go? That'll be Blake James's question and answer, and he's going to probably be announced in the next couple days. So stay tuned to BC Bulletin for all your updates. In our last segment, it's time to talk a little lacrosse, and we're going to talk about their final game of the season that ended in heartbreak. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often painful and sometimes intimidating questions and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing only the brands their warehouse happens to carry? You happen to have all the access you need on your computer with rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30, 50, or even 100% more for the same parts from a chain auto when you can go to Rock Auto and save? Their prices are reliably low for every customer, and it's a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. All you have to do is head on over to their easy-to-use website, put in your make and model, and boom, everything they have will come up, including brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck, and rate Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here. So we're going to go from me being a bit of a pessimist to being just bummed about the end of the season for the BC women's lacrosse team. BC women's last week beat Maryland to head to the finals where they got their third chance at beating number one undefeated UNC, and they fell just short in an absolute classic of a game in Maryland. They were down by 2 with only a minute left, and they scored a goal I think it was Cassidy Weeks scored a goal to bring it within 1, and they just didn't have enough time to mount another comeback. I mean, they had a great comeback against Maryland a couple days before, but this comeback was good too. But how does this team end? Like, what is your takeaway from a game like this where they were so close and they didn't get it? You had to be proud. There's nothing you can do but be proud of these women because they played their butt off all year long. They played some really good teams. I mean, UNC is great. They never lost a game this year, and BC got 3 cracks at them twice. They only lost by 1 goal. So that shows you how good BC was, and you got to see again why Charlotte North is one of the best athletes Boston College has ever had at any sport, as she made some incredible plays during the game. And I tweeted about it, but I watched her shoot her penalty shot, and she has this really cocky wind up. I consider it cocky wind up, but it's awesome. It's got swag to it. You know what I mean? She winds up and then she just unloads. That goalie has no chance of stopping her shots. She's just great. She's an all around, generational player at women's lacrosse. But it's not just Charlotte North. I mean, there were other players. Jen Majid, Belle Smith, I said Cassidy Weeks, and Rachel Hall had some great saves at goalie too. A great team, and Akeisha Weinstein Walker, the head coach, has put together a program that now has 5 finals in the last 5 straight finals. They've only won 1. But when you make it to the finals that many times, you're building something here. And it's not just because of Charlotte North. You've had other players that have been really good too. And Sam Apuzzo was only here a couple years ago. You had Kenzie Kent. You know, up and down, they've had some really, really talented players here at Boston College. And you're building a program that has sustainability, that is becoming one of the premier programs in women's lacrosse in NCAA lacrosse. They are so good. And I agree with the folks out there that wish there was a men's lacrosse team, because it just seems like the popularity of the sport is just taking off. There were 8,000 people at that game on Sunday. Now, you know, that's only the sixth highest total at a finals, but that's a great number for a sporting event like this. That's not basketball, that's not football, not hockey. Really, I mean, hockey, I think it's almost as good. You know, I'm not sure if it's as good as the NCAA Frozen Four, but it's a good turnout for that, and it's just continuing to grow. You see lots of young girls in Charlotte North jerseys, waiting to get autographs from her, going to her camps. This team is an absolute joy, and you know, people have asked me, why didn't you cover them more? I run a site by myself. The income that we make from it, I don't have enough to bring in a full-time writer, and I don't know a ton. I have to admit, you know, I'll be real with you. I love watching lacrosse, but it's not my it's not my thing. And I have to say, I did enjoy watching a lot of these games this year. And I think you're going to enjoy seeing where this program goes forward, because they have talent coming back. I mean, Belle Smith looks to be the next big score for this team. And we'll see how they kind of turn the page now that Charlotte North is gone. But, you know, congratulations to them. There's nothing wrong with losing a national title game. You always want to get the W, but you know, at the end of the day, you tip your cap and you move on, and you congratulate yourself on a war well played, because I mean, they've played some good teams this postseason, and they beat them all except for UNC. Now, the last piece of news, I kind of alluded to it really quick. DeMar Langford is coming back to Boston College basketball. And that's great for BC, because now they have their starting 5 basically set in stone. You have the Langford brothers, DeMar and Makai, both are returning. Those were both kind of question marks heading into this season, but they're all coming back. You have Jaden Zachary. You have Quentin Post at the center, and I imagine TJ Bickerstaff will probably be the play the 4. So Earl Grant has his starting 5, and I like it. I like what they have there. Now, after that, you have Mason Madsen, the transfer from Cincinnati. You have the 4 freshmen on the bench. And you have CJ Penna, who's, I don't know much about, I have to be honest, coming from a D2 school. And he at that D2 school, he had like 23 points a game, 10 rebounds. But obviously that's not going to translate to ACC, but we'll have to see what he can bring off the bench. And of course, Devin McLaughlin, when Earl Grant was just interviewed last week by The Athletic, he talked about the freaky wingspan that McLaughlin has. I think it's 7'2", and we haven't even seen him play yet. He's going to be a redshirt freshman next year. So I think it's interesting to see where this program goes. I think they still have one more roster spot left too, so they might not be done on the transfer portal front too. So we'll have to see. I mean, I would think maybe they go for a big, but we'll have to wait and see what Earl Grant does. All right, so to wrap this up, a few quick things. I want to send a special shout out. I don't think he listens to this podcast, but I do appreciate him. To Tyler Calvaruso from 247 Sports. He writes for Eagle Insider. I got to know him a little bit from press conferences and such. Who's moving on to a new position in their network. He's going to cover Penn State. And I just want to wish him happy trails. He did a great job covering BC in the recruiting. And finally, just for podcast news, we are now in off-season mode, and this is more chance. I apologize, I didn't get a chance to tell you guys. I went on vacation last week. I got a cry. It was nice. I didn't have to do much sports related. Got a chance to recharge. We get a chance for a couple months to kind of bring this down. We're doing 3 days a week, so we're going to do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So starting this week, it's Wednesday. This is our Wednesday episode. I'm going to release it on Tuesday, but it's for Wednesday. But we'll have our next episode on Friday, which if anything else breaks, we'll have all that to talk about, get some more football talk, and everything in between. Thank you all so much for listening. This is AJ Black. You can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack_BC or at LockedOnBC on Twitter as well. Take care and see you soon.